So, Antonia, thank you very much indeed for joining me on this podcast. And it's actually part of a planned piece of work we want to do as part of the cancer strategy. Now, I met you very briefly when I attended the Cancer Network meeting, and I was genuinely inspired by your story, which I didn't know because I'm not on TikTok and I don't use Instagram. So it's a real pleasure to invite you along to put it on platforms for perhaps some of us who aren't using TikTok and
Yeah.
Instagram to hear more of your story. So perhaps I'll let you start. I mean, where would you start your story from?
I think that's a really good question because I, people who do know me or people who don't know me, those who perhaps do know me, they would recognize me as starting my journey and posting online as of 2023. But actually, my story goes back a few years before that. So I was studying music in Brighton in 2021. I'd finished my degree and I decided to do a master's.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, I became unwell overnight. It was really, really quick, and we were in the midst of a lockdown. My symptoms appeared as having anaphylactic shock, which is a really serious, severe allergic reaction. I've never had that in my life before that moment, so it was very scary and it was quite
Mhm.
unknown. And unfortunately, it progressively got worse over time, and I had to move back to Jersey and I had to defer my year at uni.
Mhm.
And eventually, I ended up getting diagnosed with a really rare condition called mast cell activation syndrome. This was in July 2021. I had been a medical mystery before that. I'd seen numerous doctors in Jersey and Southampton, and they just weren't really sure what was wrong with me because the one thing I will say is that my symptoms weren't consistent, and they were pretty random. I had itchiness, allergic reactions. I was really tired. I was losing weight, gaining weight, just generally not feeling myself. And a few years went by, and I just had lost my spark. I'd completely lost my value of life. People who know me just said that I was a shell of a human being. I wasn't myself. And I'm a very confident and loud person. And I had just really kind of isolated myself because when you're unwell and you're seeking help and people are telling you, oh, you've got this thing,
Mhm.
you kind of put your faith in these professionals. And I didn't question what they were saying. So when I was diagnosed with something, I believed them. But in myself, I think a lot of people who have been unwell, you have like a gut feeling, and it's something that I just is not really, you can't really explain it to anyone that hasn't felt it. But I knew that something wasn't right, and I continued to fight for myself and advocate for myself and kind of ask for more testing, more questions, because I had found a lump in my throat. And I had been reassured that I'm young, I'm healthy, you look fine, you're like all these typical things that you would just like be hearing as a young person, especially you just wouldn't assume cancer. So the only time that word was ever mentioned was when my mum kept asking, could it be cancer? Just like, I think that when we're going through a pandemic and it was obviously very serious and it was very tough time for everyone and the NHS and all the hospitals in the world were really struggling, I think that unfortunately I just wasn't a priority, which is it's really unfair because I think a lot of people were hard done by in the pandemic, and you can't really blame that on anyone. Everyone tried their best, but unfortunately that meant that it took a few years of fighting and I wasn't getting any answers. So I decided to go privately to have a surgery on this lump on my neck, and it actually turned out to be cancer. It was thyroid cancer. It's called papillary carcinoma, and it had spread to nearby lymph nodes. And this came as quite a shock because this type of cancer is really uncommon in people my age. It's more common in women, but mostly 50s to 60s is when you would find like the predominantly people that get diagnosed. And so I think for me, I was really angry and upset. I was that anger and upset wasn't directed towards anyone. It was more just frustration in general because I'd lost a lot of years of my life, and I'm grateful that I was diagnosed at that point before it got any worse and progressed in the stages. But I was hearing quite a lot about this online. I think I went to TikTok and I just typed in thyroid cancer, looking for some sort of not even just information, but kind of hope of someone that perhaps had been through something similar to me. Because I think when you're having a really hard time, you want to see someone that has perhaps been through something similar and who has gotten through it. Because I think that we can only ever really learn from each other's experiences, and kind of, it's all well and good me going on Google and looking at the NHS site and looking at Macmillan and cancer research. They are all really great forms of getting information. But I think the best sort of information we can share with one another is kind of learning from our own trial and error. And I decided that I wanted to document my cancer journey. And to be honest, people ask me why did I decide to do that? And I don't really know. I just had the urge to kind of document it. I think that I was really motivated to kind of fight this battle. And I also knew that it had been quite a struggle for me in terms of just like the stereotype of being young and healthy and all that. I didn't want anyone to have to go through what I did. And also, there was a time in my life during those 3 years when I was really poorly that I didn't really have a value of life. I wasn't able to do things that people my age were doing. I felt like I was getting left behind, and I couldn't really fight for myself and advocate for myself as much as I would have liked to. So I think that through me posting my journey, I kind of wanted to speak up for those who couldn't speak up for themselves, because especially even in the community of Jersey, I'm hearing about so many people who are going through their own cancer journeys, and they've found great comfort in seeing someone else perhaps in the island that they can kind of relate to. And you kind of have, like, I don't really know how to describe it, but anyone that I've met that has cancer or has had cancer, you have an instant connection with, because you just have that compassion and empathy for each other, because you know what you've been through. And like I was saying to you, two people can have the exact same cancer but have a completely different experience. And that's what I always say to people, is that when I'm posting, I'm not doing it to scare anyone, because cancer is a really difficult topic to talk about. I know that it's really upsetting to a lot of people, because a lot of people have experienced loss through cancer, but we should be talking about it. We should be normalizing it, because 1 in 2 people in their lifetime will get cancer. And there's not really that much that you can do to stop that. You can obviously, there's things you can do to prevent it. You can eat well and exercise and all these things that doctors recommend. But at the end of the day, it was just an unfortunate thing. It's just something that happened, and it could be hereditary, it could be circumstantial. So I think that it's really important to be talking about this, because I think sometimes when people have symptoms, and like I said, symptoms look different in everyone, you sometimes you rationalize these symptoms. So you think, oh, maybe I'm just tired because I've been really busy, or maybe I'm really hot because of the weather, or maybe I'm cold because it's, small things like that. Because these symptoms can be really subtle. People think that it's really obvious when you have cancer, but it's not for everyone. I know in my circumstances, because it had been so long, it came as a shock, but not really. It was more of a relief to have answers. But some people get complacent, and you're no longer kind of alarmed by these symptoms, and you get quite comfortable. So you don't push yourself to go to the doctor. You let it simmer. And then that's the problem, is that people are getting diagnosed and it's stage 2 and stage 3, when actually, if they had been going to the doctor earlier, then it could have been prevented. But I think, like I said, in my situation, it took a lot of fighting, and I'd been dismissed a lot and kind of just told that there was nothing to worry about. So I think a lot of people worry about going to the doctor because they don't want to go and feel like they're wasting time and resources. And I think I would always say to people, it's better to be safe than sorry, because yeah, you might go and it might be fine, but at least you went. Whereas there's times when you don't go and actually you probably should have. And I always say to people that if you have early detection in cancer, it's a preventative for it to getting further. Because in my situation, I had to have 2 surgeries, and I had to have a round of radioactive iodine in Southampton, and also numerous cell treatments. I might not have needed to have all of that had I been diagnosed earlier. So that's what I just say to people, is that I don't share my story to scare people. I do it to educate people and hopefully give them that like boost and they need, and that push to go get checked out by themselves. And I've had so many messages from people who haven't necessarily been diagnosed with thyroid cancer, but been diagnosed with something else as a result. And that's what I always say to people, is that even if it's not cancer, it could be something else. and every single health problem, every single mental health problem is just as, like, they're all equal. Like, I always have people come to me like, oh, it wasn't as bad as yours, and I'm like, there's no need to compare, because actually it's your body, like, you need to keep it well and healthy. It's not kind of like a competition. Don't compare, just like make sure that you go and seek help. That doctor is there for you and for everyone is valid and allowed to go get help. So I just have been sharing my story to kind of help people, but then in some ways it just kind of blew up and now has like inspired a lot of people and just gone a bit crazy, but in the best kind of way. And I always say that I'm glad that I did it because it made the best out of a bad situation. And when I got cancer, I didn't want it to kind of be for no reason. I know that sounds really strange, but I didn't want this horrible thing to have happened to me and then I just move on and pretend like nothing happened. I wanted it to be for a reason. I wanted it to be, oh, I had cancer and then I made a difference and I helped other people get diagnosed here. Because I have so many people messaging me saying, oh, I had a tumor or I had a cyst. And unfortunately, I have had people message me and say they have had cancer and they found out because of me, and they thank me for helping saving them lives. And I didn't do it for that, but that is really makes me feel good because I'm helping other people, and I was helped through seeing other people's videos. Like I said, I went on TikTok and I looked for videos for education and just kind of hope. And there was a girl from Love Island called Demi Jones, sorry, and she is 23. She was diagnosed with the same type of cancer as me, and if I hadn't have seen that video, I might not have thought of thyroid cancer. And there's so many people that I've connected with online that have been diagnosed because of Demi, and that's one person making that much change. So if every person is posting, like, imagine how much influence and good can be done. So that's kind of what I've been up to, apart, and also just doing kind of cool stuff with charities in the UK, Teenage Cancer Trust, Macmillan. I've worked on different campaigns for them, Young Lives versus Cancer as well. And I think the reason that I've attracted a lot of views to my page is because I have posted everything. I've posted the highs, I've posted the lows, and also in a way, I haven't done it to glamorize cancer. It's more just to document exactly what happened, because I think sometimes people don't realize that there are highs in a cancer journey. When you get good news, you do celebrate. I am a normal human being. I go on holiday. I hang out with friends. I hang out with family. I think that when I got diagnosed with cancer, I googled it and it was coming up with movies and TV programs like My Sister's Keeper and stuff like that, and The Fault in Our Stars, and it was very negative and down and depressing, which is the case in some parts of my cancer journey, but not the whole way through. Sometimes I have been able to enjoy a birthday, or I have been able to enjoy a special occasion and go on holiday with my family. And I think that's what I really wanted to show people, is that even though you're having a hard time, you don't have to sit at home and kind of dwell on it and isolate yourself. You deserve to enjoy your life, and that year or years, however long you're having treatment, it's important to still do stuff that makes you feel good and makes you feel like human and normal, because otherwise your mental health will suffer. And there was a time where when I first got diagnosed in March 2023, I didn't tell anyone for 2 months. I didn't, and I say I announced it. I don't really know how you say it, but I didn't tell people till May because I didn't really know how I felt about it. I just stayed inside and I just assumed that, oh, for the next year of my life, it's a write-off. I just thought, oh, that's it. And then I realized that you can have cancer and still live like a normal human being, because there's people that have terminal cancer and their mission isn't to treat it. Their mission is to just extend their life, and they just learn to live with it. And I think that's what I've been doing, is just learning to find a new normal, having cancer and after cancer, because the journey doesn't stop when you get told that you're in remission. I think that I have realized, and I think a lot of people I speak to, that actually the recoveries feel a lot harder than the treatment. And I think it's not spoken about enough, because when you have cancer, when it's active and you're having treatment, everyone's rallying around you, people offer support, and you get boosted a lot of the time, a lot of encouragement. And then when you get told you're clear, everyone disappears,
Mm.
and there's like a few people left, a few people that are like for life. And that's when it's really lonely, because that's when it hits you. When you are having a treatment, you're in survival mode. So you've got all this adrenaline, you're really motivated, you're like, I have to live, I want to live, I want to survive. And then the dust settles and you have that moment of realization of, oh my word, what just happened? I had that. I remember going downstairs to my mum and I was sobbing and I was like, I just had cancer. And she's like, yeah, we know that. And I'm like, no, I'm really starting to
Mm.
process and realize that. And that was really hard for me, because I think one thing that I've struggled with is that I'm so young still, that I have all of this life left to live, that I might spend a lot of that time worrying it might come back. And I always worry, can I have kids? Can I do things other people my age are doing? Like, it's a lot of unknown. And I think that people have found comfort in my videos, because when I told you have cancer, sometimes they try and sugarcoat it because they don't want to scare you, but actually a lot of people just want to know the truth, so
Mm-hmm.
then you can just deal with it. So I think when they saw me posting and showing them exactly what it was going to be like, you can kind of prepare a bit better. And I think that's like, when you don't have control over a situation such as having cancer, what you do have control of is like what you know and what you can prepare for. So when they told me, they were really brutal, to be honest. It's not like you see on telly and they sit you down and they're like, we're really sorry. It was just, for me, it was kind of like, yeah, things are about to get really, really tough, but like, you will be okay in the end. It will be difficult for about a year or however long, 18 months, but you will get through it. And I think that someone just being that honest about how tough it is going to be, it really validated my feelings as well, because when you're having a hard time, sometimes you rationalize it thinking, am I being dramatic? Or am I young? Am I, all those things I was saying. And but actually I could sit there and go, actually no, this is a really rubbish situation, and everything I'm feeling is completely normal. And I think that's why people have found comfort in my videos, because it kind of prepared them. It's almost like a crash course in having cancer in your 20s, and what to expect. And also, not just people who have cancer or have had cancer. I think I get a lot of messages from family members of people saying that they're really glad they saw my video, because now they know how to approach their family member or friend. Because a lot of the time I say to people, just ask them what they need. A lot of the time people say to me, I don't know what to say. And I'm like, there is no right or wrong thing to say. I think the biggest thing is just saying to that person, what can I do for you? What can I do to help you? And also maybe looking into things for them, like resources and charities that could help them and things like that. I know that a lot of people, when I got ill, they would send me, oh, I saw this online, like Jersey Cancer Relief, this would be good for you, or there's an event for Macmillan. I think it's just realizing that there is only so much you can do, but you can point people in the right direction and just kind of provide them with the right people that can help. So you might not meet, you might not be that person that can do that much, but putting them in the right direction of people that can help is quite a big thing. So yeah, it's just been a very big year for me, but in the best kind of way. And still on recovery, but I think something that's really helped me with my recovery is getting involved, like you said, with the Jersey Cancer Network and with different charities, because it's kind of helped to heal me in a way. I don't know why, it's just very comforting and very cathartic, in the sense of being able to kind of help people that have been through my situation and kind of being what I would have needed at that time. I think hindsight's a wonderful thing, and I'm just glad that the government and like government officials have been really receptive of what I've been posting, and getting invited to speak at meetings and give my opinions on policies, and thinking about what could be changed in terms of financial help for people and families with cancer. And I think what is good is that they are encouraging change, and they are recognizing where things could have been improved for the next kind of people and the next generation of people. Because I always say it's a horrible thing, but I'm the first person in my friendship group to get cancer, but I'm definitely not going to be the last. And it's just kind of my motivation is that, it's a horrible thing, but whoever gets it next, I hope that they have a better experience, just like where we can improve and things like that. So I think that it's really good to see groups like the Cancer Network. They want change. They're encouraging people to be honest, because I think a lot of the time is you want to be heard and you want change to happen, but you don't know who to go to or what to go to. So I think with me posting, it's kind of given people a platform to come to me with their ideas. So then we can go and we can have chats like this and we can put it into action. And I think that's a really great thing. And also just being this young, like I said, the next generation of the island, like with the new hospital and everything like that, we're going to be using it and our kids are going to be using it. So I think that's what's really important, to get opinions and kind of feedback from those people who actually are going to be using the facilities and stuff like that. So I'm just really glad in terms of the response I've had. But like we've talked about, there's definitely room to improve. There's definitely more things that need to be done, but it's just good that we're kind of getting this conversation started, because cancer is a taboo. It was a taboo when I got diagnosed, but less so now. And I think that I'm glad that I've kind of had a contribution towards getting that conversation started in my age group and just in general in the island.
I think a couple of things really occur to me. I'll pursue a technical question, but I've got a philosophical one coming up. The
Okay.
first one is, when I attended the Cancer Network, I was really struck by the things that are not cancer, but really important. So, your age, for example, I know that very young people have to navigate the education department, the housing department, the social security department, because, of course, when you're a young person, or if you're on the brink of being an adult, or you're still classified, I mean, there's lots of things that really impact you that aren't actually cancer. They're
Oh,
all
yeah.
things that go around that. I mean, what was your learning from that? What was your experience of that?
I think that's a really good point, because in Jersey, there's different age requirements for different things. For perhaps, for example, Click Sergeant is a cancer charity for children and young adults. Their kind of cutoff is 25. So that's when
Mhm.
you would be deemed a full adult.
Mhm.
Whereas that's how I felt. I didn't feel like I was a child, but I wasn't quite an adult. For example, with like the housing, you can't really make an application until you're 25, unless dependent on circumstances. And also with some sort of benefits and sick pay and all that, it's really hard to navigate. And that's why I've been working with Click Sergeant, because it's families, it's not the individual who has
Mm.
cancer that deals with that. So when they're 18, it gets passed to you. So I was in that category of where I had to do it myself, but it's not easy to navigate. And I think that's something that I really found hard, is that I'm trying to fight, I'm trying to get through my treatment, and there's so much life admin
Mm.
when it comes to cancer. There's so much, like so many emails, so much calling, so much chasing and stuff like that. And all your energy really should be put into battling cancer, not doing all this stuff. And I think that there's not really, it wasn't obvious to me. There wasn't really someone that was there to be responsible for that. I am quite a driven person and I really wanted to get help, but that took a lot of effort. Not everyone has that effort. So I actually approached Jersey Employment Trust. I'm not sure if you've heard of them. And I just applied to them and said, I need help. I'm really struggling kind of sorting out social and tax and my work and applying for sick pay and things like that. And they took over for me.
Mm.
And actually, we've been talking, and I did kind of like an article for them recently, because not many people who have cancer know that they can go to Jersey Employment Trust. So I think it's not well known what's available. And there is things available and there are people that can take over. For example, I just would give them written consent to kind of do things on my behalf, and that was really, really great. But people don't know it's available. And also, like you say, it's all about age ranges. Some things you're eligible for because of your age. And it was really hard for me because I live with my mum. And so before that, we were classed as the same household because I was 24. The day I turned 25, it became way more complicated.
Mm.
And we kind of had to sit down with them and have a chat and say, I'm 25, but I'm not ready to move out yet. I can't move out. I've just a week before I've been told I'm cancer free, but I'm still having treatment. I'm still recovering. And
Mm.
I think that they really had to take a step back and think, oh, okay, actually, this policy doesn't work because it's not done on a individual basis. It's done in terms of 25, goodbye, you're on your own, like you're into the world. You can apply for stuff by yourself, but that's not really the case for someone who, like myself, who perhaps is still not fully well and fully not capable of doing that. And for me, that was quite scary because I just got a letter one day in the post, and you already have so much on your plate, and it's quite scaremongering, to be honest. I think that's another thing I talked about, is like the delivery of things. Getting a letter in the post when you're going through a treatment, it's really scary because you can't understand it because it's not really written for it to be digested easily, especially when you're having a treatment and everything's just a bit brain fog. And I think that was really hard because not knowing who to turn to. And sometimes I think a lot of the time people feel like the world is against them, and there's things out there against them rather than to help them, like trying to catch them out. And people are reluctant to ask for help because they don't want to open a can of worms. And so I think that it was quite interesting for me to be invited to the Jersey Cancer Network, because I am on the brink of that, because I'm now 25, but last year I was 24. And also I got unwell when I was 21. I didn't know there was any help available. So for those 3 years, I did everything myself. And I really wonder if perhaps if I'd had that extra help and had that person coordinating, if they had been able to help me get in contact with the right person to get a diagnosis earlier. And I think I always say it's not what you know, it's who you know. And it's like really important to have some people on your side. So I was really glad for Jersey Employment Trust. But like when we talked to the Jersey Cancer Network, there was a lot of things they were talking about that I didn't know that was available. And why don't I know that? I have a platform, I could be sharing that. Like, they should be getting in contact with people. And I know they are now, and I'm really grateful to be a part of that, because like I said, I want people to learn from what happened to me and kind of it be improved for them. But I think it's just, we should be offering help to people in need, not even just cancer, mental health, physical health, anything in general. We should be doing as much as we can to help them during that time, not causing them more stress. Because like I was saying earlier, it was my mental health took a massive toll when I had cancer. It was really hard, but it was me who went and got help. It was me who would call places and email. And I think that with the new strategy and things like that, that is being put in place so that you are approached, you are offered help, you have like a questionnaire, and then it's tailored to what you need. So it's more on an individual basis. That is really great. And I'm glad that we're going in that direction. But that is for people above age 18. What about people who are younger? That's what I really worry about, is that I was young, but there's younger people with cancer. And also, when it gets to that point and you're under 18, it's your parents' responsibility, but your parents are still required to work. They're still, do you know what I mean? It's loads of things like that. And I think that's something that Click Sargent are looking into, is the fact that these under 18-year-olds can't apply for the benefits directly. We should be allowing the parents to to kind of get those benefits on behalf of the family as a whole, because I know people who own their home, and when they approached kind of the government asking for help, they were told that they would have to sell their house. That's not fair, and that's not true either. I think there's a lot of misinformation that has been kind of shared, and I don't think it's in a bad way. I think it's just more because people aren't trained on how to have these conversations with patients. I mean, if you're in that kind of job, you should have more training. And I know one of my good friends, Michael Kirkwood, he does a lot of work in terms of going into like places of work. And we were talking, and I said, it'd be so great if you did one about having people with cancer, like encouraging colleagues to talk to them and stuff like that. I was like, I'll come in and do it for you. It's just like things like that, getting these conversations started, because I don't think people only get into gear when it happens. Why are we not preparing? Why are we not training people for these moments, especially cancer? Like I said, 1 in 2 people will get it. And it's really annoying, because I think that people only really concern themselves or educate themselves on topics when it concerns them. Whereas I had kind of been educating myself for a long time on health and cancer. Unfortunately, my dad had cancer when I was 15. He's okay now, but it was a really difficult time. And before that, my nan died of cancer. And I know that a lot of people, they have experienced loss, and sometimes they turn away from it. It's too painful. They don't want to get to know more about the topic. But I think that that's the thing, is like I said, when you put yourself in an uncomfortable position, that's when you grow, that's when you learn, that's when change happens. And that's why I decided to document my journey. It was hard. It's really difficult being that vulnerable, and it's really hard because Jersey is so small.
Mhm.
And I knew that I was putting myself out there. I knew that people were going to see me in the street and be like, that girl the other day, she got bad news, or she had like things like that. But I think letting people know that we all are human and actually being more open. I think that there's a really big struggle in the island. I know we're working towards improvement in terms of its World Mental Health Day today. And I see a lot of companies posting, oh, we bought our employees a cup of coffee for World Mental Health Day. That's not enough.
Mm.
It's not enough. No one wants free coffee. No one wants a free breakfast. People want to have like options to go to therapy or have an in-house counselor or have a HR team that really wants to listen and help you through a difficult time. And I think that it's all well and good saying that we support people with cancer and we support people with mental health problems, but what are we actually doing? And that's what I say to people. And that can be quite hard to kind of be the person to speak up about that. And it has been difficult for me. I have received criticism, I have received a bit of hate and stuff like that, but I know that I'm doing good if that's the case, because it's making people feel uncomfortable, because I am not afraid to talk about these topics. And I think that's what's really important is our generation is learning to speak up for themselves. And I think that's a really, really great thing. And I think there's a lot more people in my age group, like I was saying about Michael, there's loads of other people in my age group now who are kind of making changes and kind of they're not finding a company that's for them, so they're making their own, or they're starting their own podcast, or they're starting their own anything. And I think that's a really great thing, to mix creativity with also making a change. And there's loads of room for that in the island, because I didn't know anyone that was doing something similar to me. And I think that I thought it would only appeal to the younger generation, but I get people messaging me of all age groups. I get people who are in their 60s, who are parents, who are grandparents, and things like that. And I think that's what's really great, is that we are allowing that space for our generation to kind of come in and make changes. And like I said, I have got a bit of criticism and a bit of hate, but I think that comes with everything, to be honest. And I'm always open to people giving me constructive criticism. I think that's really important, because it allows you to grow. And like with the Cancer Network, and you've come up with great ideas, I think it's important to kind of be open to change and open to recommendations, because then that's how we can progress. And I think that's what's good about the Jersey Cancer Network, is we're getting all these people together who can make change, and we're all bouncing ideas off of each other. And I think that's really great to have someone in the room like myself who has experienced that, because it's all well and good. I say this is really hard because I've had people speak to me before, and people of high authorities, and say, oh, well, there's this on offer, or this is not that bad. And I'm like, but you haven't been there. You
Mm.
haven't, have you ever had cancer? You haven't used that process. You haven't used that perhaps application form. So you don't know what it's like. So it
Mm.
might be fine for you who sat at your desk testing it. But what if you're at home and you're ill? What if
Mm.
you're at home and you've gotten bad news? Do you know what I mean? I think that's the thing, is we're really learning from having people in the room with experience. And I always say, with these jobs, I'm seeing all these jobs that are being posted, and it's like, you need a degree in this, or you need a qualification in that. But what about lived experience? I think that's the best thing. And I was really glad when I went to an event with Teenage Cancer Trust. And a lot of the people who work there have had cancer as a child. And I think that's really great. It's not kind of like, it's not on the job description, like you need to have had cancer. It's not like that, but it's more just like they are open to that. And so they invite people and they make reasonable adjustments. And I think that's something we haven't spoken about, is that in your place of work, people say that they're like an inclusive
Mhm.
employee, like the inclusive employer, and all these things. They have flexibility and hybrid working, but then when it comes to it, they don't actually offer it. So I think it's all well and good, like I said, saying we support these people, but what are we actually doing? And I think that it's good to see change and kind of these people that are open to constructive criticism. And I think that we're moving in the right direction, but there's still a lot to be done, definitely.
And my other question, which anticipated earlier, was going to be almost philosophical. Okay. But I mean, you really talked through it all the way. I'm really interested in your relationship. And what I mean by that is your relationship with life, your relationship with the system, whether it's political, navigating your way around things, bureaucracy. And what I get from you is also your relationship with other people, either as a leader of a tribe, or somebody who's vulnerable and dependent on the support of others.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me you said earlier you were a very strong person before cancer. You're clearly a fantastic, strong advocate post cancer. I'm just wondering how your relationship with the world in your life has changed. What that
Yeah, that's a really good question. I love that question. I think that this is something I've really been exploring because I've been quite open about it online that I go to therapy once a week, sometimes twice, depending on what happens. And that's something I've really been exploring is like how cancer has changed me and my view on the world and my view on myself. And it really has changed everything, my career, my friendships, my relationships, and just yeah, like how I see the system, how I view things. And I think that when I got told I had cancer, I had kind of a moment of, okay, well, this could ruin my life. This could
Mhm,
make me bitter. This could make me miserable. And, it could just
mhm,
make me the worst version of myself. Or, the other hand, I could make some good out of it. And I think there have been moments of why me?
mhm,
It's like everyone has that. Very rare. I try to recognize that feeling and then I say, well, actually, there was nothing I could have done. It's not my
mhm,
fault. And actually, I'm trying the best to make it out of the bad situations. So I'm doing my best. And I think that's what I always say to people is that when people have horrible things happen to them, it's not your fault that that happened to you, but it is your responsibility to heal from that and to
mhm,
work through that because you will bleed onto every aspect of your life. You will bleed onto your friendships, your career, how you view the world, how you view other people. And I think that's a really powerful thing is that my mum says that her generation were kind of like mental health wasn't really like it was a bit of a taboo and it was just kind of told toughen up and stuff like that. Whereas I think that I didn't want to be told that. I had some people say that to me, being like, "You're like toughen up," like,
mhm,
or I'd get it happens to loads of people, like, or you got the good cancer, or you got it could be worse, and I'm like, yeah, that's true. It could be like worse, but it could be better. And
mhm,
also, there is no good cancer. The best type of cancer is no cancer. So I think having a lot of outside influence, I've really tried to not let that change me. And I always say to people that cancer has changed me for the better. I really wish that it hadn't have taken something horrible happening to make me realize how precious life is and that actually I can make change. I could have done all these things before cancer, but why wasn't I? It's just because I wasn't confident enough and I wasn't motivated and it took something horrible happening to me. But I always urge people that please don't wait for something bad to happen for you to realize what's going on around you, realizing your view on the world and your relationships and all this kind of things. I hear so many people like, I'm unhappy in my life. Okay, go on. What are you doing about it? Do you know what I
mhm,
mean? Like, and I think that my friends have really been influenced by what happened to me because I have so many friends that they'll be in a rubbish situation or like they're unhappy at work and they could stay a bit longer or they could stay in that relationship a bit longer, but they're like, no, no,
mhm,
life's too short. And I think that's been a good thing in the sense of I'm glad that people have seen what happened to me and have used that to motivate them rather than them thinking, oh my God, that could have been me and oh, I'm scared and things like that. But I think it's also my attitude because I decided I didn't want to sit and be miserable. I decided that I wanted to, yeah, like not let it ruin my life, to be honest. And I always say this to people is that I remember being in the room when I got told and thinking, oh my God, my life is over. Like, that's it. It's ruined. That, and everyone has that moment. I've talked about this. Like, I did have a moment of, am I going to die? Is this it for me? Is this all I've done? And all I kept thinking was, well, I haven't done anything I wanted to do. But then I'm like, that's my fault. I could have, do you know what I mean? You're in control of the situation. Obviously, there are factors that influence that, but I think I've achieved more in the past year of my life when having cancer than I've achieved in the past 18 years. And isn't that crazy that even though I was so poorly, I still managed to do all those things. So imagine what I can do now I'm healthy and what I can do in the future and the change I can make. And I think that it's just made me evaluate things differently. And like I said, like you said about people, other people, vulnerable people. And I think it's really made me, I don't know, I try to not Because I think that sometimes I make comments and then my friends are like, oh, you know everything because you've had like a realization. And we joke about it a lot of the time because they are really proud of me. But sometimes I'm all like eat, pray, love because I had cancer. Do you know what I mean? Like
Mm.
almost as though like, oh, I've had a horrible thing happen to me. I know everything. It's not like that, but we joke about it. But in some sense, it does make you change and realize things. And it's just, I think that like I said, I was told that I was too young to have cancer. And to be honest, I was too young. I was too young to experience a horrible thing such as that. I think I kept thinking, I haven't had a family, I haven't got married, I haven't traveled. There's so many things I want to do. And it's unfair that it happened. But now it's motivated me and it's changed for the better. And it's made me really evaluate what I want to do in the world and what I want to leave behind. And that's another thing that motivated me was that if unfortunately if something were to ever happen to me, how would I be remembered?
Mm.
What would I have done? What change would I have made? How would I have made my island better? How would I have made my family better? How would I have made the world a better place? And I think that I'm proud of what I've done, but it's definitely, like I said, there's more things I want to do. And I'm just one thing I'm really grateful for and I'm very aware of is that I have had great opportunities come from this. And I'm not going to sit here and say that this would have all happened if I hadn't have got, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm
Mm.
aware that this started it, but also I'm aware that I'm a hard worker and I made a lot of things happen. So I've had some people say to me, oh, well, that wouldn't have happened, like, wouldn't have happened if you hadn't had cancer. I'm like, you're right. I'm not saying you're wrong, but this sounds really bad, but like some of my friends who also have cancer, they're like, I haven't done half the stuff you've done. And I think when they said that to me, they were like, wow, like you've done a lot. And then it's not even in a comparison way, but it's just to be like, wow, you made that happen. You did that. You encouraged change because I could have sat back and seen all these problems in the system. I could have sat back and seen all these problems in jobs and just the community and the hospital and stuff and not said anything. But then I would have been complacent. I would have been allowing that to happen. And I think that's what I really encourage people, not even if it's to do with cancer or anything, health like that. But if you see something happening and you don't agree with it, you should speak up. And I was always told when I was younger that I was really loud and that I was like, I think like not naughty, but people saw me as like a bit gobby or like, I don't know what like a nice word for that is. But they just saw me as like very outspoken and always saying what I thought. And sometimes that was to my detriment. But actually, that's a great quality to have. I was told when I was younger that that was a bad thing, but look at what I've done. Look at what the change has happened. And I think that we should be encouraging people to speak up. Um, and yeah, I think it's funny that like I was known as being a bit naughty, and then now everyone's. It's funny because those people who called me naughty or said that I was too outspoken, they're like, "You're amazing. You're doing so well." And I think it's really funny because but no one thought that before I got cancer. Do you know what I mean? Like all of a sudden, I went from being outspoken and rude to being inspirational and speaking on behalf of so many people and not taking no for an answer. And I think it's very much my perspectives changed, but other people's perspectives have changed. And I think that that was quite interesting to me because it's just made me really reevaluate life and a lot of like the world. And like I said, I've really been helped through that by doing therapy because I think having cancer opened up a lot of old wounds and a lot of old things that I hadn't really thought about or considered. And I think having that much time by yourself can be a negative but a positive. I mean, I when I was in Southampton, I had so many realizations. There's so many things I want to do now. I've been working through my post-cancer bucket list. I went on a flying lesson. I did a magazine. I did spoke at the Royal Albert Hall. I would have never done that if this horrible thing wouldn't have happened to me. But that shouldn't they shouldn't happen to other people for them to do that. And so I'm just really glad about what's happened in the sense of how it's worked out. But for the future, there's loads of things I want to do. A big thing is I want to start my own charity. That is something that I've realised there's room for in the island. I applied to have a wish. It's with the Willow Foundation in the UK. And they kind of grant you like a day out or like an overnight stay or something really special. Just anyone who's had cancer or gone through treatment because I think it's really important to celebrate your wins
Mm-hmm.
and to celebrate what you've done. When people are like, what's your biggest achievement? Beating cancer. Oh my word, obviously, that is such an achievement. People think that I'm going to be really quiet about it, but that's a great thing. We should be celebrating these people that go through a horrible thing and come out the other side. And that was one of the things, is that they give a day out or a special treat. And my oncology nurse applied for me and they said, sorry, we don't do the Channel Islands anymore. And I was like, raging, absolutely unfair, can't believe it. All my friends are telling me about their trip to Disneyland and meeting Harry Kane, and I'm sat here. And so I had a chat with Click Sargent and just said to them, oh, like, I think there's room for this, but like that, it's not something that Click could do. And I said, I've actually thought about starting my own charity. And they were like, that's a great idea. And one of the ladies was like, I would help you. I would help write a business plan. Like, I think we can get loads of people on board. And I think that's something that I definitely want to explore in probably 2025, because calendar's a bit busy the next few months. But I think that it would also be really good for the island to showcase what's available in Jersey for tourism, for example. I think that there's loads of things that we could be doing to kind of show off our island and also mix different sectors. For example, approaching different hotels, approaching the zoo, approaching like safaris to donate experiences so we could, do you know what I mean? I think it's good that when people collaborate, that's a big thing, that a lot of the time there is room for great opportunities to be mixed with different sectors, but people don't think about it. And I think that's what's been great for me, is with Manor magazine, for example, having a cancer survivor on the front cover is so powerful for the community. Also for the island, it's so great to see a magazine encouraging change and having real people on the front cover, because we have these amazing, gorgeous models, but there's no one that I could relate to. There's no one that has a scar the same as me. There's no one that's experienced hair loss or all these things. And so having someone like me on the front cover really sends a message out for the island, being like, we are different. Jersey is progressing. Jersey encourages change. And I think I would have never imagined that a fashion magazine mixed with cancer and health and talking about what's on offer and charities. And I think that's what's really important, is like realizing what could we offer. So these companies or these organizations, like, what could we offer? What could we do differently? And I think that I really love people who rock the boat. I love people that I don't know, just like want to mix things up. And I think when people come to me with an idea and they're like, we think we could get you involved in this, I'm like, absolutely, because I think they know that I'm always on board for that. And I think it's really encouraging change, because I have been inspired by so many people in my age group. Next week I'm going to interview Joelle from Mind and Moves. I'm not sure if you've heard of her.
Yeah.
She's built a wonderful community for young women and a sisterhood, and just promoting like body confidence, self-confidence, like mental health, talking about really uncomfortable issues and things like that. And I started going to some of her classes when I was in recovery, and it's done wonders for me. And I just think it's great to see someone recognize that there's room for that in the island, that we're missing that, and then create that company and business herself. And completely self-made, started her business in the pandemic. And I just think that's really great. And people like Michael and myself and all these young like people, entrepreneurs who want to kind of build the future of Jersey, because that's what I think about. Is I think about this a lot actually, is I want to make an island that's great for me to have a child in. So I think about, what if my child was in the position that I was in, getting diagnosed with cancer? Would I be happy with the care that they're going to receive? Would I be happy with the support they're being given? Do you know, things like that. And I know that's quite a philosophical way, or I don't know, some people say to me like I think a bit out the box now. It's not in the sense of more emotionally, but it's more just like thinking about, what is the world, what are we here for, what is my purpose, what am I leaving behind, and things like that. And I do think that having cancer has kind of opened that realm for me, and that's something that I really have enjoyed exploring. And like I said, it's really healed kind of like past things that have happened to me, and overcoming what happened to me, and what I can kind of do to channel that into some good and motivate me to do good. And I think that even myself and my self-confidence and public speaking has been so great. But I think the reason I'm so good at it is because I'm talking about something that's passionate, like I'm passionate about it. And also I'm talking from personal experience. And I think that's when we have the best speakers, is when someone really knows what they're talking about and knows their subject. And whereas we have some people that are doing talks and stuff and you just know that they don't have any idea on what they're talking about. Do you know what I was saying earlier, when I have people of power talking to me about cancer, but you've never had cancer? And it's not to say that you can't understand it, but bring in people like me or someone else who's had cancer and get their opinion and educate yourself from real life experiences. And I think that's what's really great about the Cancer Network and everything we're doing, is that I can really see a brighter future for kind of cancer care in Jersey. And without sounding like skeptical, I want that for everyone, but I want that for myself, just in case something were to, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm realistic about my situation, and I know that I'm young, and I know that the chances of reoccurring for however long as I live may happen. So I think that it's not in a selfish way that I want to improve the care. It's just for myself. It's just for everyone in general. And so I'm just really glad to kind of be a part of that and, yeah, encourage some good change.
You seem to have, and I imagine at different stages, different goals and different time horizons. I can imagine, and I know that you spent quite a lot of time in isolation when you were particularly vulnerable. And I imagine at that stage you're literally living moment to moment. And yet some of the things you talk about now, family, children, growing up, that they're much longer horizons. I mean, how how has your attitude towards goals, horizons changed? Do you live for the moment, or you plan for the future, or how do you mix that up?
I think that's such a good. All the questions are so good. I love it. But one of the things that is changed is, before I had cancer, my goal was to work, buy a flat, move in, and live in Jersey, and that was it.
Mhm.
And then when all that got taken away, I was like, that's so physical. Like the flat was something that I was really, I know that like there's a big thing on like the housing crisis in Jersey and the prices of houses and things like that. But I was so motivated for that. And then I thought, well, if I had bought a flat, I'd just be sat in it.
Mm.
Whereas I would have no memories. I would memories I would make traveling or doing things like this. Like, do you know what I mean? I think that's one thing that really sat with me, is when I was in isolation, I kept thinking, what have I done? And I'd done great things. I mean, I'd gone to uni, I'd got a degree, I'd done the normal general thing that people do when they're from Jersey, you go off or you get a job and things like that. But I was thinking, what have I done? If I had bought that flat, it would have no meaning because I have cancer. And yes, it has value in money, but that means nothing if I'm not around. Whereas I kept thinking was, if my life was to end today, would I be happy? Would I be proud of myself? And I would be proud, but I wouldn't have been completely fulfilled with what I've done, in the sense of, could I have done more? And I think, like you said about the goals, it's been quite hard because when I was in isolation, you kind of just go from day to day. So that's when I really, really started to do my TikTok. I challenged myself to make a video every day documenting what I'd done that day. It was so mundane. It was like me brushing my teeth, taking my medication. I mean, you can't really do something. You can't do that much in four walls. So it was just small things like that, me journaling, and it held me accountable, but it was small goals. And I think when you're in that situation, just living day to day. But I remember this was quite a big moment for me when I was in Southampton. It was Stand Up to Cancer was on
Mm.
for cancer research. And I remember thinking, I'm going to work with cancer research. I'm going to be interviewed by them. One day I'm going to go to Stand Up to Cancer, or I'm going to be involved in something. And that was just like a small thought in my mind. And it was a seed that was planted. And after that, I didn't really think about it until I got better. And then I was like, actually, I'm going to post and then tag cancer research. Cancer research message me. We get in contact. We're doing a campaign. We're doing an interview. And I think with the thing about goals, you're always subconsciously planting seeds in your head for these goals and waiting for the right moment to make it happen. So I think that's something that I've tried not to get too hung up on things, because especially in recovery, I've been quite hard on myself just because I am very motivated. For like the whole of August, was a write-off for me. I was in hospital 3 times, and I was really upset because I hadn't got to do loads of things I'd done. I had so many emails I hadn't replied to. People are messaging me saying, please can you, and it was really hard because I don't want to have to message and say, oh, I'm not well, because to be honest, I'm always not well. Like, I'm always not great because I'm still having treatment. But for me, it's like my good day is someone's worst day.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, that's quite, someone said to me, with the symptoms that I experience daily, someone would have to take a day off work. For me, that's my good, because that's what I'm learning to live with. And I think that's been quite an important journey, is being realistic with myself and recognizing that the goals I have, they don't have a time frame on them. Obviously, there's things that I want to get done in a certain amount of time, but I can buy my flat in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
But can I do this right now? Like, I'm in recovery. I need to be doing these things with these charities because it's fresh and it's relevant and things like that. So I think that's one thing I've really realized is I want to have that life I talked about. I want to have all those things, but not right now anymore. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to. And it was hard because that was something I really got down about in isolation. I was looking at everyone, you're scrolling through Instagram, you're looking at TikTok, and I've got friends who are getting engaged, buying flats, getting married, having babies. And I was sat there and I was like, oh my God, like, I can't even look after myself. It was quite a hard realization. And I was thinking, their goals are so much bigger than mine. Mine is to just brush my teeth today and make, like, record me journaling, just small things like that. But actually, that was okay because that was my 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a big thing. So if you've only done one thing today, but you gave it your all, you gave it 100%. And I think a lot of these goals and future aspirations have to do with your mindset. Because if I'm constantly beating myself up and putting myself down, I'm not going to get anything done. So I
Mm-hmm.
think I try to be kind to myself and I try to be realistic. And I think, especially with all the responsibilities I have, like with working with charities, they are understanding. I think that's what I really like, is that they know that I'm trying my best. And naturally, the nature of what I'm doing, sometimes it takes longer than it would for a normal person. I think that recognizing that as long as you're giving 100%, you're doing your best.
And so what excites you now? What is, because you have so many ambitions, so many, and I've asked you about goals and horizons, but if we were just saying, what will you look back on as being perhaps your best achievement of this year?
I was thinking about this because I was doing an interview and they asked me if I could send over articles and things I've done just this year. And I can't believe it was only this year that I got told I was cancer free. It was in January. And then in March, I went to the Royal Albert Hall. And then in February, I did the Macmillan World Cancer Day campaign. Like, there's so many things I've done. And I think that it's really hard to pinpoint what is my biggest achievement, but actually it's none of those things. I think the biggest achievement is actually me remaining exactly myself and really looking after myself and getting to a really good place where I'm happy in myself. And I could say, oh, the Royal Albert Hall or the magazine, and all those things have been amazing, but at the end of the day, it's feeling good in myself, and all those things have contributed to that. But I always think my number one thing is my well-being, because I can't do it. I can't go to do those things if I don't feel good about myself or if I don't feel happy and healthy. And I think one thing I'm really proud of is that I've really been trying to look after myself and eat healthy and walk more and spend time resting and putting boundaries in place and balance. And so that's kind of my biggest achievement, is just living, because last year I couldn't do that. So getting up and having a shower and making breakfast and then doing work, that to me was foreign last year. That was not achievable. And also socializing as well and kind of living like a normal 25-year-old. That to me is a big achievement, because I didn't know if I'd ever feel normal again. This is such a hard thing, but like, I had to find a new normal. and that's been quite a challenge. And with all these achievements, that has helped. I think that's kind of given me purpose, given me motivation. Obviously, being cancer free, I would always say, has been my biggest achievement. If that wouldn't have happened, and me being well in myself, I wouldn't have been able to accomplish any of these things. And at the end of the day, doing all these things is a great accomplishment for me, but I don't do it for me.
Mm.
So when I went to speak at the Royal Albert Hall, the reason I went to speak was not so I could be like, I spoke at the Royal Albert Hall. It was because I believe in that charity. I have benefited from that charity. So when they asked me to do a speech to help them get funding and kind of talk about what they've done for me, that was why I was there. And it was just a bonus that I got to go to the Royal Albert Hall. Me and my mum got to go. That was amazing. But at the end of the day, I remember getting an email from them being like, we had such good feedback from your speech, and we've had like new investors and all this stuff. And I thought that was so great, because now how many people are you going to help? How many people, more people, are going to benefit from that? And just the same with doing the magazine as well. I had the best time, honestly. The team at Manor, I think that's another thing. I'm so grateful for the people I've met. That is something actually that I've would be grateful for, and just like kind of achieved, is like my network of people around me. Because my favorite thing is chatting to people. My favorite thing is just like getting to know someone. I think that getting to have these moments. I remember the guy who did my hair, Damien, for Manor magazine. We actually ran late because we were chatting for so long, and I could have sat and chatted to him all day. And now we support each other online. So every time I do something, he's always commenting and liking, and I'm the same with him when he's achievement. And I think that's so great, is that I've got to meet other people who are similar to me and similar goals. And I think that, like I was saying earlier, my friends, their goals are to have babies and get married and buy flats. And I still love them and we have a great friendship, but my goals don't align with that anymore. And that's really hard, because when you're around certain people, if you're around a group of people who their goals is that, you are a failure. But if you're around people who are like you are, do you know what I mean? It just depends on your environment. And I think that's something I've been really mindful of, is that you can't compare and you can't measure these things. But like I said, if you're giving 100% of what you've got, that to me is the biggest achievement. And having my health and happiness and do things that I never thought I'd be able to do. And that's kind of why I did the post-cancer bucket list, because I wanted to show people that you shouldn't wait for something bad to happen, and kind of make you realize that you can do anything you want. If you're not happy in your job, apply for a new job. Like if it's something that's in a new completely new kind of career, ask them to do some work experience. Ask them to. You can make it happen. There's things you can do. But a lot of time people sit and they have dreams, and these dreams sit in their brain and then they never leave. And it never becomes reality. And I think I'm making that a reality, and that to me is just so special. But like I said, I wouldn't be able to do any of that unless I was well and healthy and happy. And so my biggest achievement is beating cancer and being good in myself.
Okay, so I have two final questions. One observation. I think whilst this conversation started because of a common interest in cancer, I don't think this has been about cancer. This is about living your best life. And
Yeah.
everything you've said is about just seizing life and really making the best of it, whatever the circumstances. And so that's really shone through. So my last two questions are, in sport, we have this phrase, we create the environment where success is inevitable, because it's the things that you surround yourself with, the people, the thoughts, etc., that are key to your success. So if the younger you was watching this podcast, what would you say are the things that are fundamental to that success?
Oh, I love this question. I think I would tell my younger self that life is short, so don't spend too much time in a place that you're not meant to be, in an environment that doesn't encourage you to grow, doesn't encourage you to be your best self. However, it's long enough that you can make mistakes. Just don't sit in those mistakes for too long. I think that's such a powerful thing, because sometimes we panic and we think we're wasting time, but actually I think the most beautiful thing about this whole situation that I've been is kind of like the process of it happening, rather than like everyone focuses on the end goal, but actually you've where I was then, I thought that I was a failure and I wasn't achieving anything, but actually that was part of the journey, and actually you're doing fine. You're doing okay. But like I said, don't spend too long in a place that doesn't make you feel good. I always say to people that you have to water your own plant before you can water other people's. And I think that's really important, because a lot of the time people give and give and give stuff to people that they wouldn't give to themselves. So when you're being kind to people and you're complimenting them, do you say that to yourself? Do you look in the mirror and you're kind to yourself, or do you pick away and kind of like put yourself down? Because I think the biggest thing is to be good to yourself above anyone else, because especially your body. I always say this. I always was really hard for me because obviously with my scar and my appearance changed quite a lot when I had cancer, and my body. I can't believe I spent so much time when I was younger being nasty to myself and the way I looked, because when I had cancer, and even now, I'm just grateful to be here. This is my home. This is the body that helped me beat cancer.
Mhm.
So stop spending time being mean to yourself and to it, because there'll be a time where you're in a crisis like cancer, and your body will be the vessel that gets you through it. It will be your home. But if you constantly are mean to it, it's going to have an effect on you. It's going to have an effect on your nervous system. Like, I genuinely believe that your mental health and your mindset really does have an effect on your body, and that's what people said to me. I think the biggest and best piece of advice I had from a girl, she's from Jersey and she had cancer 2 years before I did, and she said to me, you have to believe you're going to get through it. You have to say to yourself, I will beat it. I will be cancer free. And I never used to believe in stuff like that, and like positive affirmations and all these things, and just like journalism and well-being and like making yourself feel good. But honestly, I think that's what got me through having cancer, because I now have a diary. I wrote every single day when I had cancer, and it was so beautiful to like go through it and see the progress I'd made and how kind I was to myself. I would have hated to read back through it and it be me being nasty to myself. So that's what I would say to my younger self, is that you are doing fine. Just make sure you're in the right environment, and don't stay in a bad environment for too long, and just be kind to yourself, because it's your home. Your body is the only thing that you get forever. Like, people come and go, houses come and go, like jobs come and go. You are the only person that is constant consistency in your life. So you should nourish that. You should encourage it. And I think that's like quite an important thing that I still live by now after having cancer.
And my other question, because I think that's something that's you've generously given to anyone, so I'm going to give you the opportunity to ask for something. Somebody is watching this podcast and they can help you fulfill one of the items on that bucket list. Which item is it?
Okay, so that's a really good one. It's really hard because they said I couldn't jump out of a plane, and I was so upset, and they were like, you've just had cancer, obviously you can't jump out of a plane. But I did fly a plane, so that was good. Okay, I have an announcement. If anyone has Liverpool season tickets, I would love to go to a Liverpool game, because that was my make-a-wish and they said no.
So your wish is to be able to go to any Liverpool game or
Yeah, I
any?
just want to see a Liverpool game, because basically my mum's from Liverpool,
Uh-huh.
and my family, half of them are Evertonians and half support Liverpool, and I've only ever seen an Everton game. So if anyone knows anyone, trying to think of any other meaningful ones that were on my list that
No,
might
no,
be
I
a
think
bit.
that's a good one. That's a good one. And there are a lot of Liverpool fans local. I'm sure, I am sure we can help you achieve one of the items on your
I
bucket.
mean, I'm trying to think of any others, but the magazine was a really good one. Um, and then there's a few others that I've done but haven't posted about yet,
Mhm.
because, like I said, there's a lot of things in the diary the next few months, with like charities and stuff. And unfortunately, they don't let you tell anyone until it's released, and that's something I've really had to learn how to like not spill the beans.
Mm.
But yeah, Liverpool team.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you to make one commitment. Your one commitment was you'll come back on the podcast
Yeah.
after the Liverpool match, talk about it. Tell me your highlights, and we'll explore further what you've been up to. Will you do?
Yeah, fabulous. Yeah, I would love that. I think I can get it in the works. I mean, I could drop a few hints to some
Mhm.
family members as well.
It's been fantastic talking to you. I've enjoyed it tremendously. I'm pleased and proud to know you and delighted in what you've been doing and the opportunity through this to share it with other people. And as we touched on earlier, this is a very important piece, but it is part of an overall jigsaw that we're doing as part of the Jersey Cancer Strategy. And so it's fantastic to have your contribution to that. So thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And the questions have been so interesting. And I think it's really given me a lot to think about when I go away from this. And I think that's what I really love about podcasts and interviews like this, is because it challenges you to really think about things that you might not have considered before. So thank you very much.
Thank you.